Hello, my name is Anna Engman, and I'm VP of People and Culture at Detectify, who's one of the sponsors of the event today. And I'm here to talk to you about not our product or our company per se, but something else that we think is much needed in the space of security and security companies today. And that is to shed some light and some inspiration on our work with diversity within Detectify. So I hope it's a topic that you're going to enjoy. If we start with some background, what we kind of can tell you about why we ended up doing the work that we're doing today is that we decided quite early on to prioritize diversity. And there were a couple of different reasons and a couple of good side effects from that. One of them was that to be able to fill the need we had for competence within our very competitive market, we needed to recruit from abroad. So the need arose from that side, but the effect that it gave us was that we were able to recruit a more diverse group of people than we would have gotten from our Stockholm market, where we were then only located. And that kind of paid off in achieving our diversity goals in the end. And that has led us to that we are today around 30 nationalities represented in our companies or in our two offices. Another important thing to know about our background is that we also realized that to be able to grow our security company in the way that we wanted, both from a diversity point of view and input point of view, and also from finding enough talent, we needed to embrace talent outside of security. And I don't know how this looked in other markets, but it was quite uncommon for security companies to look at competence outside of their own sphere. But we decided to do that. And what that gave us was that we were able to collect a diverse group of people that were from different backgrounds, and they could bring different mindsets and different experiences in life and different ways of working into our company. And that has ultimately also led to what we like to call a diversity of minds, which is not only a diversity of like what you see physically, but different input and perspectives. And I mean, diversity leads to diversity. And this sounds like a cliche, but for us, it was very true in the sense of that when we started building a diverse team and when we had the foundation of that group, we saw that helped us to attract groups, and it helped us to continue to build a diverse team going forward. And it also helped us to influence and support the kind of culture that we wanted to build, because we started to build it so early on that when we came to the scale-up phase, diversity was a big part of who we were as a culture. So these are not prerequisites that you need to have as a company to be able to do this work that we're going to show you now, but it's our background, and it's the reason why we decided to put so much time and effort into what we're doing now. So if we look at what are we doing? There are three parts that I would like to bring up, and how you go about working effectively and concretely with diversity and diversity goals and belonging goals. And the first one is that you need to set realistic goals about diversity. For our sake, that meant that we needed to look at choosing a few but concrete metrics or areas where we saw that we could make improvement, because this topic was quite new to our organization, and it can so easily become something super fluffy and something that doesn't really give any effect. So it was really important for us to look at what is it that we can do. And for us, we chose to zoom in on one aspect of diversity, which is gender diversity. And we didn't do that because it's the most important aspect of diversity in any sense, but that's where we saw an immediate need, and that's where we saw actionable things that we could make metrics and engage the organization in. So we decided to start there because it was the most urgent thing, and because it could give us good wins to have the organization be in this for the long run. And if we look at diversity, I think it's also very important to see that you can work with both aspects of things that you want to keep, things that you want to improve, and things that you are proud of. So for us, for example, we are 40% women in our global organization today. And if you look at the security industry as a whole, they're about 24%. So, I mean, that is something we're very proud of, but we're not, like, that doesn't mean that we're done. And that also means that when we're scaling the way that we want to do in the future years, we know that this is going to be harder. We've managed to keep it so far. It doesn't mean that we will keep it going forward. So the first aspect of our diversity goals was to keep our gender balance or make it better if we can. But it was important for us to make a realistic goal that we knew that we could keep. And that we knew that we would, like, it would still be a challenge to make it. And for the other goal that we decided to work on, which we saw was very concrete, was that we had uneven distribution of gender in our different roles and in different levels. Overall, a very good balance of men and women, but if you zoomed into different levels, it looked very different. So, for example, if you look at management level, we're 70% women, and I mean, that's a lot of women. So, and it's something we're proud of. And if we look at IC levels, so individual contributor levels, like under senior, from starting level up to senior levels, that was almost 50-50. So, where we saw that we could make a difference was that in technical roles, we had only 35% women, and in senior roles, we also had about 30% women. So there we saw that if you want to make something concrete, that's two aspects where you can focus. So two realistic and tangible goals about diversity that we set. The other part that we think is very important if you want to set out on this work is that it's very easy to forget that you need to work with your internal structure and your sense of belonging with your current employees. It's very easy to focus on external recruitment to kind of solve your problem by bringing in more people to whichever differences you have. But if you don't make sure that your environment internally and culturally is beneficial for all types of people and all groups, then you're going to lose them in the end, and it ain't going to help you in the long run. So for us, it was very important to also set goals that included belonging and to see how we could improve our internal structures so that we had a beneficial culture for improving the internal movement when it came to seniority level, and to keep a diverse group of people in our roles that wanted to stay with us, and to also make sure that all people of different types of roles had the same opportunity to move around internally. That's how we can leverage competence, and that's also how we can leverage like the brain power and like the ideas and the creativity of the people that we have, where everyone feels that sense of freedom. So for us to attack this topic of belonging, which can be super broad and super fluffy if you don't kind of try to pinpoint it, we have done a few different things. One is that we regularly survey our team, where we measure the feeling of belonging and equity. And that is done through our diversity and belonging survey, which is a survey that we posted the results on our blog. You can find it through a recent post on our LinkedIn and on our Instagram if you want to look it up to get all the details and stats on what we look like in terms of diversity internally, but also our views on diversity and belonging specifically. So we do that on a regular basis to get that input, but that information is not granular enough for us. So we also use our survey and that we have through our EMPS tool, where we regularly, weekly measure engagement and where we have data points connected to belonging. So that gives us the continuous data of, okay, so what is actually needed in our organization? Where do we feel that there's something that can be improved in relationship to our sense of belonging in the organization? So that is one way to make belonging a bit more concrete when we start to set goals for it. And then what we did, like the last point, which I think is really important, is that collaboration and data rules are one of our core values is collaboration rules, which I think very much applies in this. And I also want to add data to this. As you saw with the data that we collect for the belonging, we could not have done this work without having collected data. And there's a few different reasons for that. One is that we have an organization that we want to have on board with this. They were quite inexperienced when it came to working with diversity and belonging and understanding the concepts. So for us to be able to help them to set goals and have them engaged in setting goals, we needed to show them what we looked like and what we were like internally. And we also needed to show them how you could use that data to make concrete and actionable goals for diversity and belonging. So we set out on a journey where we basically, for the year, we started with doing our survey, collected that data, and we managed that together with our EMPS survey data and our other internal data that we had around the state of our diversity and belonging. And we put that together for each department lead and sat down with them and showed them, this is the state of your team. This is the state of your smaller teams and your bigger teams in relationship to what our company goal is when it comes to diversity and belonging. And then we help them to figure out which areas to focus on, so to narrow down their scope to make it a realistic and concrete goal. And then they took that out to their teams and we work with OKRs, so they set key results for the coming quarters. And those key results we then help to follow up during the quarters to come. So that was one way of using that data to make it more concrete and actionable for people to where to dig in. The other thing that I think is important with this is to say that collaboration rules in this is not only to kind of uphold our core value, it's super important that you engage your organization in this. Partly because a people team or whichever operations team is holding this together, they can't do it on their own. And even if the managers are on board and the management team is on board, they can't do it on their own either, because you need that collaboration with the rest of the organization, and you need that input from them to tell you what the realistic and the concrete goals should be and what the needs are of the organization. So that is why collaborating with them and finding ways to engage them is super important. And a super important part of that is to make sure that they have the data that they need to make this work as concrete and actionable as you can. So to round off this session, there is a few things that we would like to give as a tip to anyone. I mean, a person, employee, leader in an organization, whoever you are, I think we all can make a difference in helping to bring the work of diversity and belonging into into our organizations and future organizations that we'll be part of. And the first thing here is to make a goal about diversity. And what we mean with that is to set an achievable goal and to figure out for your organization what are those first most important achievable goals that we can focus on, and focus on those. Don't try to do everything at once, because it's not going to get you where you want to be in any aspect, but just figure out together with your organization what should be the first thing to dig into. Then make sure that your goal is visible and talked about in your company, and make sure that you put it out there, whichever space it is that is suitable for you. But people need to understand your goals, and they need to understand how to help to achieve your goals. I mean, this is, if I would be talking about anything else than diversity and belonging, this would probably be very it's things that people take for granted, that this is how you make a project and this is how you make a project successful. But because we talk about something that we sometimes conceive to be harder to deal with or harder problems to solve, or interrelationship wise, then we tend to forget these things. So make a goal about diversity that is achievable for your organization, that is adapted to your organization's needs, and make sure that that goal is understood and communicated to everyone who needs to be involved. And then don't forget about belonging. As we said, working with your internal feeling of belonging is as important as filling up your different quotas of diversity to get a better balance in your organization. And I think that is that this is where you can make the most difference in the long run. Make sure that you do set, again, concrete and actionable goals when it comes to how you can make people feel included and engaged in being a part of your company. And then, of course, complement that with recruitment over time, because sometimes you actually you don't have more people internally than you do, and you can't move them around more than you do, and you can't create more opportunities than you already have. So then you also need to grow in a sustainable way, where how you recruit is super important. But make sure that we have those two parts complementing each other to be sure that we have something that is sustainable over time. And then it's a data-driven group project. Figure out how you best collect and visualize the needs and the strengths and the weaknesses of your organization in terms of belonging and diversity. Use that data to help your organization understand their needs and what needs to be done. Use that data together with the organization to set the goals that is relevant for them and that is actionable for them. And then make sure that these people have the right ways to approach you. If that is in more ways than setting their goals, if it's forums to discuss, if it's places to give feedback, if it's surveys to collect input, that is up to your organization and what you need. But make sure that it's a project that people can contribute to, because that's when you will get the most effect. So if you are interested in how we did it and what results came out and how we are setting our goals going forward and following up on those, then please reach out either to us as a company through our webpage, or to me on my LinkedIn profile, or ask questions now in the space of this meeting. And if you don't want to interact but you want to read, then visit our blog, and you will find it through our LinkedIn page, or through our Instagram, or through our webpage. And also, I mean, if you want to see our organization more in action and get to know us better, we have a session or a panel that is held by two of my colleagues, Johanna and Caroline, about how to become an ethical hacker. I think that is in the making right now, but you can probably listen to it afterwards. And also, we have our own booth, so you can visit the Detectify booth and meet some of my colleagues there and discuss this even further with them. That was all for me. If there are any questions or any comments or interactions, I'm happy to answer those as well. Good. I'm gonna interpret it like there's no official questions, but please reach out if you think of anything later on, and enjoy the rest of your day.